Here to engage the world from a position of strength. It's one of the world's largest.
It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe, and we begin with Nigeria to the world, as Vice President Kashim Shettima has commissioned Nigeria's first ever sovereign pavilion at the World Economic Forum in Davos, describing the initiative as a clear statement of the country's renewed seriousness, readiness and resolve to actively shape global economic conversations. Speaking at the formal opening of Nigeria House 26, Shettima says nations do not prosper in isolation, stressing that Nigeria's future growth depends on deliberate, structured engagement with the global economy, while noting that the pavilion was conceived as a whole-of-government platform led by the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, with senior leadership of investment, foreign affairs, energy, infrastructure, climate and culture. Shettima emphasized that its true vitality must come from the private sector.
The message of this House is simple and deliberate. We are replicating on the global stage what His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has delivered at home in repositioning Nigeria's economy. We are here to engage the world from a position of strength. It's one of the world's largest emerging markets. Nigeria is a nation of over 242 million, with a median age of about 17 years. Global growth is facing a peak, and certainly, most certainly, Nigeria will make or mar that transition.
We're still looking at reform. The International Monetary Fund says recent macroeconomic reforms will begin results reflecting improved stability and a gradually strengthening growth outlook. In its latest World Economic Outlook, economy steady amid divergent forces, IMF upgraded Nigeria's growth projection to 4.4%, representing an upward revision of 0.2 percentage points from its October WEO. Economic growth was projected to moderate slightly to 4.1% in both 2026 and 2027, also marginally higher than earlier estimates, underscoring growing confidence in the reform trajectory. The latest projections emerged in the same day Executive Director, Chief Executive, Nigerian Export Promotion Council.
Good morning, Jesus. Good morning, Lord. Good morning, Jesus. You come from heaven above. The Holy Spirit is on this room. Good morning, Jesus. Good morning, Lord. So, now good morning. And so with the majority of the homes in southern part of the country called Nigeria, that's so that they wake up. Wake up, give glory to the Lord Jesus Christ first, and then every other thing fall in place. Today we are talking about the power, the alchemist of power. There's another angle to see what is currently going on with the Bola Tinubu administration. If everything go well, that is how he will record Bola Tinubu current administration. Not in total, but some angle we see from this as an alchemist, the alchemy of power, the alchemy of reconciliation. What we ask, what is that? This Opaolo grammarian. What you mean? What is alchemy? Then we go alchemist. So first of all, let's check it out. What is alchemy? Huh? Alchemy. Alchemy. The kind of philosophy, by the way. Let's just say grok. What is alchemy? Alchemy. But yesterday I was talking about Davos. I alluded to Davos. I don't know if Davos done the happen self already. You know, I don't know what's going on. Am I too? Am I slacking? Or I'm too forward? I'm then forget about the present. And maybe I was too focused on Trump being the one of the headliner first time. So that will come up in tomorrow. Maybe not tomorrow we'll join them. Or the video I started with Shetima at this that is opening the Nigerian house at Davos. So Davos, one of the I don't know. I think I need to spend time on that. I need to spend time on because trying to represent the future government. This one world order of the thing that they're talking about. It's not something that somebody will sit down for Washington D.C. or Beijing or where or Asuro. They did everything. The one world order or the big brother as Brave New World call it now. Just like in Davos now, every country could get its own house. There's not like one stage. There are different stages, right? Where people could make speeches. If you go conferences or you will receive it by for that conference. Every topic is being discussed simultaneously at the same time, but different friend audience, different auditorium, different. So that's pretty much what they are doing. So every country will get house, will get kind of like office, but they call it house in Davos. Then they will build their stages everywhere where conversation will be have debates, interviews, and all that will be taking place at the same time for that period of time. So, and I think that's where power. That's how the world is going to be run. The new world order that the Americans are going to pretend again, going for the next 80 to 100 years, is going to literally come from there, I think. Because it's a corporation will literally run the world via, what they call technocracy. Yeah, every state go see there, every country go see there, but pretty much it being run from Davos. I think that's what is just America will be the military power wing of the one world order. Rules, I guess, will be run from Davos. The technology wing, the singularity side of it, they will run from maybe various places, but Austin, Texas for sure. I don't know about, but again, if we are going to see where the true socialism meets capitalism at one go. The capitalists are going to be those who are the owners of the corporation that will running pretty much every aspect of our life, from transportation to feeding to you name it. Why every other person will be governed by socialism. What we eat, how we eat, what we earn, how much we earn, every other thing will be determined by everybody, which is pretty much you earn nothing, you own nothing, and you still be happy. What they're talking about. They are there for abundance, will just be at that top of the owners of this corporation, those who govern and rules and all the kind of shit. Of course, there will be abundance to them. But the rest of us Well, maybe not in our lifetime, but that's pretty much what I think the next 180 years will be working towards. Unlike before World War One, whereby capitalism pretty much run the show, you know, um, socialism pretty much take the backstage, but China got it right as a model. So it's interesting, you know. If you live in New York, if you live in California, if you it's a different world entirely compared to if you live in Texas, Florida, Tennessee. Anyway, so now Alchemist of power, right? No other person talking about Tinubu here. So we say, what is alchemy? It's an ancient proto-scientific and philosophical tradition, a precursor to modern chemistry that sought to purify mature and perfect material primarily by transmuting base material like lead into gold and finding an elixir of life involving both practical experiment and spiritual transformation. Its core belief centers on the idea that all matter shared a common origin and could be perfected using concepts like crystal four elements, earth, and water, and sulfur, mercury, theories to guide process that laid groundwork for modern chemical techniques and equipment from pigment to distillation. That are just alchemy. Now, if we're not trying to go the full route, alchemist, an alchemist was historically a practitioner of alchemy, a proto-sciences blending chemistry, mysticism, and philosophy, aiming to transmute base metal like lead into gold, discover an accelerator of life, or create universal remedy. Often view this physical goal as metaphor for spiritual purification. Today, alchemists also refer to various things, including a famous inspirational novel by Paulo Coelho about self-discovery. He produced a concept accelerator that embodies transformation. That. Now, one goes, how all these things they apply to Tinubu and the the wahala wey they go through. Anyway, as don't ask me that, okay? But we'll break it down as we go. Be patient. This is me trying to be an academist. You know, I'm going to make it what? Don't worry, just hanging tight. I got time, man. Hanging tight. It's a lot happening at the same time and I don't know how or where to go about it, but we'll get into it as we forge ahead there. Um, so the alchemist of power, in other words, now, why do I choose to come this way? It's because I don't think we Nigerians understand what it really means with the route New York Times choose to go with the genocide, Christian genocide story that came out a couple of days ago. It's a big deal because New York Times now one of those news agency that are the top of the news. Now then be the agenda setter. They set out what the rest of the media will talk about pretty much every goddamn day. And then why and another thing, the fact that New York Times they write about us frequently now compared to in the 60s is something I don't get because there's a time I set out to say, okay, make I read all the headlines about Nigeria from 60s to 70s so that I can actually get a different perspective about the coups, the assassinations, the civil war. But to my greatest surprise, now just one or two headlines, very few headlines. I still have to resort to the classified document to see get more. But today, I think every day now there's pretty much headline on on New York Times about us. And I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. So, but for them to come out with that and every other news agency fall in line with that narrative says a lot. And with Tinubu, just I don't talk the beginning of the year say come. Tinubu should not come back. No because I get any power, but you got what I mean. Tinubu should not come back without a deal. Ain't coming back without a deal. That bomb na go accompany am. Literally bomb, especially when Trump actually reinforces that. And to my surprise, as they enter, New York Times they follow him and instead of gun a blazing, now different story we dey hear at all. And IMF coming out with kind of a positive update about the economy and all that kind of bullshit. So it says a lot about the man himself. Whatever deal that he got, other than the 9 million that he paid, I think he's working. One would argue. So coming from the Alchemist perspective, that's pretty much the background. It's a fitting moniker for Bola Tinubu, the Jagaban of Africa itself, the field marshal, as some would describe. But I am, taking all this in with a bit of caution because since I don't know what kind of deal is struck. I don't know if if it's a done deal or it's just to buy time. But whatever it is, I think for now it's working. So the man that is synonymous with Emilio Coin, this is my turn. Go out there, grab it, run away with it. Power is not given but seized. Literally transmute it like a base metal into gold, just like the alchemy. Drawing from that poetic framing in pieces like Tinubu and the metaphysics of power. This is the cable, October 2025. I am quoting from. Where he described as a mastering the alchemy of reconciliation, turning hostility into collaboration, enmity into alliance, rivalry into friendship. It's clear why supporters crown him the ultimate transformer in Nigerian politics. This is the cable, not me. He's not the sword shielding conqueror. He is the mystic who absorbs opposition, forgive mystical, and recreate power from the ashes of conflict. Where others burns bridges, he rebuilds them into highway. To the villa, enemies become cabinet members. Critics become quite beneficiary. Threat, Trump redesignation, airstrike, CPC drama becomes opportunities. Join Ups sustained its 1 million lobby flipped into leverage. Imagine that. So the man Jagaban is a perfect illustrator of what Alchemist of power represents. He doesn't fight threats, he transmutes them. From Trump's gun ablazing to quiet alliance, from opposition roads to national win, Tinubu burned hostilities. Tinubu turned hostilities into gold, rivalry into relevance, base metal politics, as they call it. That's pure alchemy. So you can call him what you will, Godfather, Builder, Enigma, but the truest title might be the Alchemist of Power. Bola Ahmed Tinubu doesn't grab power with noise or force. He transmutes it. Raw opposition. He alchemies it into loyalty. Federal hostility into Lagos. Turn it into revenue machine that made the state a model. Excel. Exile after June 12th. Forge into the democratic comeback that bet literally give birth to APC. Now, nationally, Trump designates Nigeria, drop Christmas airstrike, float invasion talk over genocide, claims must with rage, rally, rigs, escalation, not the alchemist. He absorbed the heat, coordinate quietly on those Sokoto hits, has joined precision herbs. Hire a DCI for 9 million to educate DC on real efforts, protecting all faiths, crushing jihadists. How fact that is, how true that is left for we to argue about. The man outbid separatist lobbies. That's another thing we are not ready to talk about. He reframed the narrative. What is the result? No escalation. Africa done pipeline for now. Aid whisper continue. That money will come from USA, from State Department. So that New York screwdriver, say, I've been rose the guy. It works. It's a temporary sting that distract from the biggest transmutation. Threat into partnership, pressure into breathing rooms. This is the metaphysics at work. Hostility becomes collaboration, enemy becomes alliance. You wield power like a sacrament, not a sword. Forgive where other failed. Absorb pain today for victory tomorrow. Build people, structure, economy, not just headlines. They say this is how history will write about Tinubu if everything continue on, if they continue to the next level, I should say. Critics call it desperate, wasteful, embarrassing. They miss the lab, miss the whole moves. Tinubu's alchemy isn't about optics, it's about outcomes. Lagos wasn't built on applause, it was built on strategy. Nigeria reforms ain't popular, they are necessary. And survival in this game is not accidental, it's deliberate transmutation. Ladies and gentlemen, can't get more alchemist than that, I think. But again, tomorrow could tell a different story. But I'll wait and I'll stand to be corrected on that. The Alchemist power doesn't just play the game, he changed its rules and history. It remembered the builders who turned leads into legacy.
Of 2 million barrels of oil per day by 2027 and 3 million barrels per day by 2030. Joining us on the show today to discuss ways we can improve, regulate and boost our oil and gas sector is Dr. Eva Umeozo, oil and gas expert. He's the founder of Proctem, that's a pioneering project economics modeling SaaS application for upstream and downstream oil and gas project economics modeling analysis, Nigeria's upstream economic fiscal. So given this, he will also share his thoughts on the impact of the U.S. invasion of Venezuela on the global oil market. Good morning.
About your worries over the spread of authoritarianism across the world, and Zainab was just talking about protests and.
Here we gather people together. In fact, more than once every year, we do what we call activist meetups. So this is New Year. We had a pretty hectic but successful year last year. 4 arrests, several detentions, and for some few nights I was in Kuje prison just for challenging authority. So we just bring people together to say, look, there are times for fights, there are times you can relax, rejig, recalibrate, and also mix together. So that's what this is about. We've been doing it for close to 5 years now.
So what are we expecting from you? It's 2006.
Well, you can't tell what will happen in Nigeria until you wake up. So, but you've heard so many of the lawyers talk about human rights, the situation with our judiciary. Of course, we're going to keep fighting impunity carried out by the police, DSS, a lot law enforcement agencies. We are going to work on ensuring that this country is secure, but also it's a year for organizing for power. So we are going to organize to take power from the guys who have been misusing power, those who don't even know what to do with power.
So
Well, sure is I run every time. I run every day. But of course, when we're media people too, so we're close to you. And we want to be closer to the media. One of the issues we suffered, honestly, is that the media doesn't see itself as part of the struggle for justice until in the trouble. Then they're looking for, where's Sure? But being an activist, I'm a media person, so I love the media. I've always taken it by stride that, a society is better with a media without a government. Yes. But there's no society that can survive with Nigerian media and Nigerian government at the same time. We need to get back together. Media for the people, questioning power. Yes.
So lastly, with the state of the country right now, the tax payment, the parliament case, and all of that, what do you say?
Well, we provide moral guidance. We're like the compass of the nation. We're the conscience of the nation. We expect people to also fight for themselves. But we know that
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has conferred Nigeria's second highest national honor, the Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger, the GCON, on Lebanese-Nigerian businessman Sir Gilbert Shaguri, recognizing Mr. Shaguri's outstanding contributions to national development. Now, this honor was awarded under Section 1, Subsection 4 of the National Honors Act, acknowledging a man whose influence on Nigeria's economic and urban landscape. Born to Lebanese immigrant parents, Shaguri co-founded the Shaguri Group alongside his brother Ronald, and what began as a business venture grew into a diversified conglomerate with interests across construction, real estate, manufacturing, finance, telecommunications, hospitality, and even tech. And his impact became visible in landmarks that reshaped Lagos. I mean, from Banana Island to Echo Atlantic City, projects that redefined the city's urban imagination. Well, reacting to this honor, billionaire businessman Femi Otedola described it as well-deserved, calling Sir Gilbert Shaguri a visionary whose work speaks in jobs, infrastructure, and lasting impact. According to the official instrument of confirmed, Tinubu said the award recognizes Shaguri's virtues and his service to Nigeria. From immigrant beginnings, now all the way to national recognition, Sir Gilbert Shaguri's story is one of patience, scale, and legacy. On behalf of TVC Communications, we say congratulations, sir. Before I hand over to my very capable team, I'd love you all to please chime in on this segment with the tag notable timelines if you'd like to remind me about a person, place, or a thing. Now, this is the second highest national honor team. It's just under the Grand Commander of the Federal Republic, I believe. So this is a very, very big deal. And it's awarded to people, as you know, Mr. Shomi, who have been in exceptional service to the nation, who have built and helped Nigeria in some capacity or the other. And when we look at projects like Echo Atlantic, where we're standing, it's clear to see that this man believed in Nigeria long before we believed in ourselves.
Speaking, it's an honor well-deserved. It stands tall when you talk about businessmen in Nigeria. It's not just about the fact that he started his operations in 1971. He has consistently sustained these businesses, providing thousands and thousands of jobs, for Nigerians. And he ensured that he's breaking new grounds in every area. You can look at Echo Atlantic, what he did with Echo Atlantic. Look at the industries. Made an enormous contribution. For me, I think he should be reserved, to get the GCON. So thank you, Mr. Alba Shaguri. That's the way of saying we appreciate you. Yeah. You are one of us. You are a Nigerian like us. Yes. We appreciate you.
Yes, of course, a Nigerian like us. But Mr. He's a visionary. He had an idea in life. He's a philanthropist. We can go on, and I think that he really deserves this award. This is an award that I know that he deserves. Very big congratulations to you, sir, and well done. We expect a lot more from you. Oliver Twist always asks for more.
Say congratulations to you. You've made it easy, possible for us to even be here, right there in the heart of the ocean, to broadcast live to Nigerians and the world. To say congratulations to you. GCON is not an easy feat. And being a Lagosian yourself, born in Lagos, congratulations all together. We want more.
Thank you so much, Olamide. Those were really fantastic stories. Very big congratulations to him once again. Well, this is for today. Let's let you know that the views and reactions of our resource persons are theirs and have no connection whatsoever with TVC. Up next is Your View with the very beautiful ladies. And just after that, we do This Morning with Yori Folari. We'll see you tomorrow very bright and early. Good morning, Nigeria.
You know, of course, to Lebanese parents, born in Nigeria, before Nigeria become Nigeria, they have no mistake. But what in that process? So I don't know why it's up. Even the guy that got the deal with Trump, he Trump, you kind of giving him about. So I think from that perspective, the man deserves he's a Nigerian. So it's funny. So the opposition, that's it, at the end of the game for them. They just they couldn't take advantage of the gun blazing. Tinubu win this game because those people now will come back and they want to become president of Nigeria after they don't trade off Nigeria. I don't know. It's a serious time ahead. Serious time. Because since the way things are going, means that those people have to
Right, good morning and thanks for joining us on the Thursday edition of TVC Breakfast. I'm Veronica Danny-Kodo. I'm not here alone. I have Mike Okwache. Mike, good morning.
Oh, yes. But
Right.
it's a rainy
It's
morning.
a rainy
and a lot of people are stranded one way or the other at different bus stops because the buses are not moving as it's supposed to.
And there's flooding, flash flooding as it
We
stands.
understand there are flooding in some areas.
And that is causing some of the traffic being witnessed on the roads heading to the office
But for
this
those
morning.
who are going to be home, it's a good time
It's a
to
good
see because of the rain. It's amazing.
Anyway, let's look at something interesting, some developing matters now as we come down to May the 29th inauguration. There is intense lobbying, as is being reported, amongst the members of the current administration, the cabinet of President Muhammadu Buhari, who are lobbying to be part of the incoming administration. About 18 of them are said to be lobbying, intensifying their lobbies to be part of this incoming administration. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's interesting. Although, in fact, the 18 just made headlines. We understand that there are even
There'll be more than that, of course.
So some are behind the scenes, making calls, going to in the name of congratulating the new, also the president-elect and all of that. But Nigerians will be very concerned. And in fact, they recall that the president, Muhammadu Buhari, had complained that his lieutenants, that handling things, were not putting things in perspective, came out at a time to raise the alarm. So the issue of representing his government in the way that it's supposed to was not being done. And that is what made Nigerians to have a perspective or a perception that the government in so didn't satisfy what whatever benchmark that they have set. So if you want to look at each of the ministries and all of that, you're going to count maybe 1, 2, or just a few ministries. You say, okay, just a few. This one did well, this one did well. So if we have up to about 18 ministers, so let us assume that each of these 18 persons represented each of the different 18 ministries, lobbying the new president to continue either in the same capacity or in another capacity. Then it is going to disappoint Nigerians if because their agenda is that now that we have seen most of these ministers who have been there for the last 8 years, Nigeria is still where it is. Of course, there has been progress in different measures and parameters. But at this point now, Nigerians are looking forward to taking off to another
level.
And another level altogether. So Nigerians are expecting fresher, fresh faces, fresh ideas, fresh concepts, as the case may be. Nigerians want to see new persons on board. And in fact, recall that the president-elect had said that he's going to form a government of national competence. That doesn't mean that it won't also be a government of national unity. It will be a government of national unity.
But you have to be competent.
But the competence is what he wants to
supersedes.
Put forth. So he would like to come with fresh blood, fresh thoughts, fresh thinking, fresh concept, fresh ideas. So they want to see new faces. Now, it won't be out of place to have 1 or 2 persons from the previous who delivered.
Yes.
Having them on the new what we have our experience because of our competence, because of our everything we've done before, let's see how we can continue and refire, as a way of consolidating. But to have as much as 18, in fact, to have as much as 5 former ministers in the new cabinet right now, Nigerians are going to be very disappointed.
Well, their contribution during the election will also matter.
So, of course, the issue there is...
So, whatever it is...
Recall that we've been talking about this issue of contribution to election. There are different ways of compensating people who have contributed to the election.
Let us leave it here now. Let's leave it here.
Let's leave it here. Now, how this will play out, this election, as we move forward, those who they, because it's already been framed.
It's now time to take a look at news making headlines across the globe. Of course, we begin with Nigeria's foreign policy news today. Battle to shape Washington's view of its internal security crisis has spilled into a lobbying war, with the federal government dramatically outspending Biafran secessionist group seek President Donald Trump's ear over claims of a Christian genocide. According to the UK publication African Confidential, alarmed by Trump's threat last November to go into Nigeria, guns a-blazing, President Bola Tinubu's administration and its allies have moved swiftly to counter separatist narratives in the U.S. capital, signing a $750,000 a month deal for 6 months renewable contract with the Republican-linked DCI group to press Abuja's case on visa policy, military cooperation, trade and tariffs, and to emphasize government efforts to protect Christians and Muslims and combat jihadist violence. Well, the scale of the contract dwarfs that of the shadowy and unknown Biafran Republic government in exile, which is paying up $66,000 a month to the smaller Madison and Washington lobbying firm to push for sanctions against Nigerian officials, greater U.S. engagement and even support for military strikes and favorable Washington in an unidentified future Biafra. Well, the lobbying scramble has unfolded alongside intensified U.S. security contacts, including joint intelligence coordination and strikes suspected jihadist targets in northern Nigeria, underscoring how claims made in Washington are now intersecting directly with military, diplomatic, and commercial decisions affecting Africa's most populous country. Well, in a related development, the United States has delivered critical military supplies to Nigeria as part of ongoing efforts to strengthen bilateral security cooperation between the two countries. The delivery was confirmed by United States Africa Command, better known as AFRICOM, which oversees U.S. military operations across the continent. In a post on X, AFRICOM said the critical military supplies handed over to Nigerian partners in Abuja are in support of Nigeria's ongoing operations in tackling terrorism and banditry. It comes amid a broader security partnership between Nigeria and the United States. Well, AFRICOM has also pledged enhanced collaboration and support for Nigeria's National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, in its fight against illicit drugs. A senior AFRICOM delegation has met with NDLEA Chairman, retired Brigadier General Mohammed Marwa, commending the existing partnership and promising further assistance in capacity building and international cooperation. For the Drug Enforcement Administration, that's DEA, officer to AFRICOM, described the relationship between the and DEA as not only a part, but highly important to the U.S. government. Well, foreign policy is certainly dominating the news this morning as Nigeria's president has told global investors that the country is looking for partnerships that go beyond resource extraction and deliver jobs and value at home. At the 2026 Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week on Tuesday, President Bola Tinubu said Nigeria is ready to do business as he announced a new trade agreement with the United Arab Emirates and outlined plans to attract billions of dollars in climate finance.
At this forum with world leaders, investors and development partners, President Bola Tinubu frames Nigeria's climate strategy as part of a wider global shift that energy, finance, food security and development. He says developing countries like Nigeria must not be forced to choose between climate action and economic growth.
At this defining moment in history, Nigeria stands with the global community, moving beyond ambition and chose delivery. The nation views the Nexus approach as an opportunity to align climate action with energy access, economic growth, job creation, and social inclusion. As in Belém, climate action must be fair and just. Developing countries require predictable climate finance, accessible technologies, and robust capacity building to support full climate commitment without losing focus on advancing their developmental priorities.
He points to regulatory reforms, new carbon markets and green bonds that are already helping to mobilize funding for clean energy and climate-resilient infrastructure, making a direct pitch to investors backed by figures.
It is in this spirit that Nigeria has launched a climate and green industrialization investment playbook to unlock 25 to $30 billion annually in climate finance. The Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority has launched a $500 billion energy fund, while the world implementing the $750 million there.
But the president was quick to warn that Nigeria remains open for business on its own terms.
I take this opportunity that ensure not just extract, but local processing and value addition, thus creating jobs and strengthening industrial capacity at home in Nigeria. You are very, very welcome. Nigeria is ready to do business with you. It's easy in, easy out. We just want value addition.
Alongside the investment push, Tinubu announces a major diplomatic and economic breakthrough with the United Arab Emirates.
We welcome deeper engagement with development partners and private sector leaders to accelerate flagship projects that reflect all system goals. In the spirit of partnership, it is with great pleasure that I announce that Nigeria and the United Arab Emirates have successfully concluded negotiations on a comprehensive economic this is no strategic milestone in our bilateral relations.
The deal is expected to unlock investment in renewable energy, infrastructure, aviation, logistics, and digital trade. And next month, Nigeria will co-host an investment in the United. Tinubu says the country is now fully ready for business, balancing climate action with growth and opportunity at home. Adesoa Omoruan, Arise News.
All right, and now to politics. As the leader of the Kwankwasia movement in Kano and the 2023 presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, has accused the Kano state government of allegedly pressuring state officials to defect and declare for the All Progressives Congress APC in the state. Kwankwaso, while speaking in Hausa in a video posted on social media of Saifulai Hassan, alleged that he has received a lot of information on how the Kano state government is compelling officials and elected local government chairmen to sign for the Gandujia movement, a development he describes as disheartening, considering the effort of the NNPP to bring Governor Abba Yusuf into power. While wishing the governor well in his new political direction, Kwankwaso explained that his sudden change of position to allow supporters to choose for themselves was driven by the need to allow party members exercise their political rights freely and to reduce rising internal tensions within the NNPP in Kano State. Well, certainly yet to hear the last of developments from Kano State, Rufai, as the permutations continue to develop. And then, of course, foreign policy is a huge focus this morning. Your take on these big stories today?
Okay. So in Kano, with the case of Kwankwaso, it's finally accepted now that his political godson will join the APC. And he said in the interest of not exacerbating the tensions in town, that, yeah, he could go, but he said it in a very key way. He said it with a lot of remorse, like he has acknowledged the fact that he has lost the battle. But the question will be, will Kwankwaso follow his godson? No. And for other political godfathers that say it's a do or die affair, you can see Kwankwaso now and the governor of Kano. It's not that he tried to impeach the governor of Kano because he went to the APC. I don't know, maybe he might do that tomorrow. It's not that he made it because there's a breakback between. It's not that he told his followers, oh, go and fight the governor. In fact, the allegation I was making was the fact that they are trying to coerce people to go with the governor. So you can see this case of and some areas. They will try to impeach, they will have rallies where they abuse the godson, they will do all sorts. In fact, even for good measure, a state of emergency will have gone into all of this. They will have dragged themselves multiple times to the president. Elders in the land will have tried to intervene. Probably Pandef will have even spoken to them. So we are seeing two different areas. Because for those that kept on berating Fubara yesterday, let's remind them. There are videos that copiously show that Wike was constantly and he made promises that, oh, once I've left, I don't need to interfere any longer. The question we should ask is what changed? So let's see what will pan out in Kano. Even will Kwankwaso himself also leave? Secondly, the president went to Abu Dhabi for a conference. The question we should ask is, all these conferences President Tinubu has been going to, what has he brought for Nigeria? In the space of last year, President Tinubu didn't travel, he would travel well over 40 times. Question is, how much have that brought? If you go and check the data of foreign direct investment, FDI, not announced propaganda FDI, real FDI that came in, I'm not sure since President Tinubu got in, is up to 5 billion. 2023, maybe a little over 100 billion, a little over $1 billion. 2024, about that 1 billion mark. It's been 1 billion each. And the president have been gone for well over 100 and how many days, Peter Obi called it? 190 days. The good thing is, yes, they signed an agreement with the UAE government. 7,000. There's going to be all of that, sort of like an AGOA-esque SEPA, they call it, all, as, ratified by the International Trade Law, GATT and the likes, which is all good. But the question is, we are signing trade deals. They are going to come do Investopia here. These are good signs. Jumoke Oduwole work, could need kudos to her. But we are signing all of this. Vimbai, can single business people go to the UAE as we speak today? There are multiple visa restrictions between age 18 to 45. So can they enter the UAE as we speak today if they want to trade? So when will the president try to fix the visa restriction? But, if we go back historically, you remember what happened. You remember how, and you remember what we got from it. You remember all the false announcements in the early days of this administration. One too many mistakes. President Tinubu, a lot of Nigerians are suffering in Dubai. To get work visas, difficult. Even from Nigerians that want to go and work there, to get work visas, difficult. For those that want to do tourist, single people, difficult. There's an age cap for them. So it impedes businesses. I think these are the things we should be able to work on more than ever before, rather than all of this signing. And hope we'll be able to follow up with these agreements. You were talking about an agreement we signed last year that we've not followed up on now.
No. It's this SEPA that they have now signed a year later.
That they have now signed a year later. Okay, it took a year. So let's hope that about a year after, we will not be taking another year to be able to look at the implementation of this SEPA. And the question we should ask, tariff-free goods between Nigeria and UAE. Who is going to get the balance of trade and the balance of skill? What is the quality of the products we have to give? Are these goods high return goods? Is it that there, or we are going to? I think these are multiple questions we need to answer. I yield.
Okay, first, let me start with Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, January 11 to January 15. The outcome that we have seen there is Nigeria signing agreement with the UAE, Economic Pact with the UAE. And two statements in that regard. One coming from Dr. Oduwole Dimiti, that's the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. We call that minister, the Minister Miti in our time. Now, then you have the statement from the President also saying that, look, this is an investment drive and we've been able to get some opportunities. Now, the agreement signed are in the areas of trade, real estate, digital banking, and also, what else is it? Yeah, infrastructure financing. And of course, there's that statement from Dr. Duwale, a very lovely statement about the opportunities that will come to Nigeria. About 7,000 Nigerian goods, particularly in the area, will become tariff-free. Nigerian businesses will now have the opportunity to access the UAE market and set up businesses. Nigerian businessmen have now been given the opportunity to spend 90 days in a year,
just like that, in terms of visa access. So visa access was also addressed. And in other words, both countries, in a mutually beneficial arrangement, can also invest in Nigeria, and Nigeria can send more goods to the place. Okay, it all looks so nice. The president says Nigeria is going to co-host what they call Investopia. From the title itself, you know it's about investments. However, what I found interesting in the statement by Dimiti is a statement about swift implementation. She devoted a paragraph to swift implementation. And that is where I think the rub is. In this country, we sign plenty of memoranda of cooperation, memorandum of understanding, memorandum of whatever, of commitment, whatever title they use. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has a desk that is devoted to cooperation, whether it's its technical aid corps or multilateral agreements or bilateral agreements. The point I was making yesterday is that that desk in the that directorate in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is weak. It's not enough to just sign a memoranda of understanding or whatever in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'm sure they don't have space anymore. And most of them have not been actuated, because some people in that ministry are just absent-minded. And I was saying that it's not a personal task for the president. And I was speaking from knowledge, from understanding, as somebody who has been within that corridor. Now, those desk officers have to do their job. After these documents have been signed, there should be follow-up. There should be the policy leaders. There should be, study, review, eventually impact assessment. We can't keep going about signing cooperation agreements and we don't see results. That is where the challenge is. No matter how beautiful, the statements that we're getting either from the president or Dr. Duwole may sound. If there is no follow-up, if there is no follow-through, then it will just be like they went to Abu Dhabi to have a photo opportunity, or that they went on a jamboree, which is a popular phrase that many critics of the government use in this particular regard. So when we see the results, when we see the follow-through, we will believe that this is of benefit, truly, to the Nigerian people, as both Dr. Duwole and President Tinubu try to point out. Now, as for lobbies. Now, lobbying is a standard, tested, old tradition within the American system. And the whole idea of lobbying is that you want your side of the story to be heard. So if Biafra, the people promoting Biafra, if they are going to the US and they are paying how much? $60,000 to sell their own story, that Igbos have been marginalized and persecuted in Nigeria, and that the idea of a Republic of Biafra will be a good proposition. I think it makes sense that the Nigerian government too is in that space. It's about the fact that the Nigerian government wants to be heard so that there's not just one voice in the room. The other matter is Nigeria being designated a country of particular concern on October 30, 2025 by President Trump. So it's a very good diplomatic move to say we want to have our own people in the room. There's a group called Aste Legal also, in Kaduna, that we're told is representing the National Security Advisor. On December 25, the Nigerian government paid $4.5 million for 6 months. And the contract is renewable for another 6 months. So the lobbyists, what they will be doing basically, is to get the Nigerian voice into the room. To say, one, there is no persecution of Christians in Nigeria, or where it exists, the Nigerian government is addressing those issues, and religion is not a major problem in Nigeria, to the extent that this is, a neutral state when it comes to religion, which is well stated in Section 10 of the 1999 Constitution, and which the Minister of Foreign Affairs referred to. Now, the delivery of military supplies by the United States, this is evidence, it is a clear evidence that the cooperation that the Nigerian government talked about, that they said they needed, the assistance that they needed in dealing with the multiple threats that Nigeria faces on many fronts is real. And the Americans themselves have said there is mutual partnership between Nigeria and the United States. And now African Command, U.S. African Command, AFRICOM, as it is known, has now brought these supplies to support the Nigerian government. The mutual interest that is there is that the Americans themselves do not want, the Sahel region or West Africa to be turned into a hub, into a playground for, global terrorism networks. And so it's a question of shared interest. As for Kwankwanso, well, the people involved in the room, they are all adults. If they like, they will say they are leaving NNPP, they are going to APC. But the key point raised by Dr. Kwankwanso, which I think should be underlined, is his allegation that it looks like the APC is stealing people from other political parties and suppressing the opposition. Well, for said that's and that it's people exercising. But our long-term objective, as we move towards the 2027 general elections, that we do not want to have the situation that they are going to have, they are having right now in Uganda, and that they have had in countries like Madagascar and Tanzania and Kenya, where the ruling party believes that it has an absolute right to suppress other people. We will not support repression or intimidation in this country. We don't have anything. We will speak up. And finally, those Biafra separatists who are looking for lobbyists in America, they can spend their $60,000, but they should know, they should be reminded that it's an act of sabotage against the Nigerian state. If you are still a patriot, if you are still a citizen, and you are sabotaging the Nigerian state, demarketing your country within the international sphere, there are consequences in that particular regard. Everybody should be well advised before we are told tomorrow that we are not supporting people who are following
Absolutely. A lot of big impact this morning, but maybe for ease of transition, let me has left off in discussing the issue of foreign lobbying. Now, it's become very clear that we've moved into an era where narrative control supersedes formal diplomacy as we've known it. We've gotten into an era where the person who is able to shape the conversation around particular issues holds the power, as opposed to that era when it was more about that formal engagement, counterparts sitting down and meeting and exchanging ideas. Now, of course, foreign lobbying is nothing new. This is a multi-million-dollar industry globally. Some of the biggest countries that engage in foreign lobbying, Japan, South Korea, UAE, and they spend up to $40–50 million per year to ensure that their policy directives are pushed forward. But what we're seeing in this current Trump administration, specifically relating to African states, is a little bit different. We're seeing some certain minority groups and breakaway groups going to appeal to the extremities, if I may say, of Donald Trump to try and push their own agenda. This is most blatantly seen in South Africa, where the group called AfriForum, that represents Afrikaner rights, which is a minority group, have gone to lobby, and they've said that, well, we are being persecuted in our country. And we've seen that this is directly caused the breakdowns between South Africa and the United States. Now, in the instance of Nigeria, things are a little bit different because the South African government have been able to bring out data and evidence to dispel all of what they have now categorized as disinformation around persecution of this particular group. The other thing is that this particular group are looking more for a safe haven. Well, you may call them a breakaway or a separatist group. That's AfriForum, who are looking for Orania, which is a land of Caucasians within South Africa, where they can self-determine. Now, when you look at the Biafran group, as they are being called, or that are engaging in this activity, then one has to ask ourselves, have we, in engaging with the American government, have we finished our data collection? Have we finished our national framework for a strategy to counter and to actually deal with the foundational issues on the ground? Or else this will end up being a PR exercise. So we don't want it to be a failed exercise in putting lipstick on an issue that has deep foundational roots. It must be a concise and a thorough exercise that addresses international engagement on one level while combating some of the structural issues that are here on the ground, which is what we link to the arrival of this consignment of equipment that has come. First of all, we hope that this is an instance of cooperation with the U.S. government, collaboration, with the U.S. government, and not cooperation. Collaboration means that you are peers on equal footing, agreeing on a way forward. Cooperation means that one group is being coerced, or one the others being strung along and forced into certain action. But the Nigerian Air Force have started doing airstrikes in Borno State, which have been a direct result of some of the information gathered by the US ISR, that's intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions of the AFRICOM flights that have been coming around. So in essence, what we are saying is that the engagement is welcome. However, let it be that this engagement is supported by action on the ground that deals with the core fundamental issues that have brought us to where we are, whether it be around persecution of Christians, insecurity, spike in terrorism. It should not be a PR campaign. It should be about ensuring that we are communicating real and legitimate actions that are being taken on the ground. I'll now quickly move to Abu Dhabi in the interest of time. Now, what the global conversation at the energy. Can energy be accessible? Can it be affordable? And can it be sustainable? And when you listen to President Tinubu's speech at the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, you hear that there was a lot of emphasis on the Electricity Act 2023, the efforts to decentralize access to electricity, and the emphasis of trying to ensure that our rural communities become electrified. Now, one shall I say lapse? I stand to be corrected. I hope I can be corrected. I was a little bit concerned that the president was speaking on the Electricity Act and issues around sustainable energy, but I did not cite the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu. I know we've gone into political season, and I hope it's not because of any other ambitions, any other commitments pertaining to politics that he wasn't on this engagement, but it would have been quite encouraging to the optics if we had seen the Minister of Power on the seat as the president delivered this compelling case for the Electricity Act 2023. Now, another issue pertaining to the Electricity Act 2023 is that as we sell it to outside investors and partners that we do need to boost our electricity infrastructure, the question is, how well are we doing in ironing out the niggling issues? We saw Enugu try to be a pioneer in trying to localize electricity generation and pricing and so forth, and we see that those issues have not been resolved. There's on paper, it's still a great piece of legislation, but practicalized and implemented, we're yet to see it work practically speaking and effectively. I close by saying the UAE is a great source of export for Nigerian gold. However, the Minister of Solid Minerals has reiterated, and several groups have reiterated over the years, that the majority of the gold that goes out, not just to UAE, but generally out gold. I hope this SEPA agreement is going to structure that allows us to legitimize the gold that is leaving, valued at over, among other minerals, valued at about $9 billion. I hope that this framework will allow us to legitimize, not just to legitimize, but also to add value to that gold that is going to the UAE markets.
So Nigeria's internal is no longer just a domestic issue. It's become a high-stakes battle for influence in Washington, according to the UK-based Africa Confidential, a respected newsletter that's built a global reputation for original reporting and analysis of key political and security developments across Africa. As competing narratives over violence and claims of a Christian genocide gain traction in the US, the Nigerian government and Biafran secessionist groups are now locked in an aggressive lobbying war, each seeking the attention and support of President Trump. According to Africa Confidential, alarmed by President Trump's threat last November to go into Nigeria guns a-blazing, the Tinubu administration has moved quickly to counter separatist claims, signing a multi-million-dollar lobbying contract with a Republican-linked firm to shape U.S. policy on visas, military cooperation, trade, and religious freedom. The scale of Abuja's effort far outweighs that of the pro-Biafra groups, who are also lobbying Washington, pushing for sanctions, diplomatic recognition, and even future military and oil agreements. So what's really at stake in this foreign lobbying battle? And how could it shape Nigeria's security, sovereignty, and international standing? Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from London by Patrick Smith, Editor-in-Chief of Africa Confidential, and is also Editor-in-Chief of the Africa Report, a monthly African politics and business magazine. Patrick, thank you very much indeed for joining us. You're a very busy man, so we appreciate your taking the time to talk to us, and a very happy new year to you. And your reporting suggests Nigeria's security crisis is now being fought not just at home, but in Washington. I mean, how unusual is it for an internal African security issue to the level of what I might call U.S. lobbying warfare?
Yeah, greetings and happy new year to you, viewers. It's actually par for the course. Issue, the lobbying operas are very much part of the political bargaining system there. You know, for example, I can give you the case of a senior State Department official who was backing the UNITA separatist movement in Angola under Jonas Savimbi. If you remember, way back in the 1980s, the CIA was backing Jonas Savimbi. Then the MPLA won the elections in 1992. This guy left the State Department, set up a lobbying firm, and then started backing the MPLA. And he was paid $1 million a year to run a website for the MPLA. And that's often the case. And I think the problem with this lobbying business is it's a sort of privatization of diplomacy. And it downgrades the real decision makers and the state, and it downgrades accountability. And I think that came out very strongly when U.S. President Trump his thought going into Nigeria, guns a-blazing, and suddenly the government in Abuja had to react really quickly, appoint ambassadors, not just to the U.S. and UK, but several other countries, and then start this kind of negotiation with the U.S. officials.
So, I mean, I lost you there for a minute, but what specifically triggered the sudden scramble for influence in Washington? Was it President Trump's comments or something deeper that's been building for years?
I think it was manifold, Charles. I think it was, first of all, the threat of the U.S. deciding to make Nigeria a target and threatening military action. And I think there are also bad memories among the Tinubu loyalists of what happened 10 years ago under President Goodluck Jonathan, when the kidnapping of the Chibok girls became an international cause célèbre. And in the lights of many at the time, that was one of the government's failures on that, was one of the reasons why Goodluck Jonathan lost that election against Muhammadu Buhari. And I think the Tinubu campaign team saw that coming down the road and thought, we must really focus on this. It had an effect. And so, as you said in your intro, you've had a running lobbying campaign by the lobbyists demanding action because Christians are being targeted in Nigeria, because that's its sort of core element. It's got quite a lot of traction with the religious right in the US, and that's really helped it in terms of getting that profile. So I think that the Tinubu administration thought we must counter this. We must counter it, both what's happening in the Trump administration, and we must counter the narrative of the Biafran secessionists.
And of course, as you said, Patrick, claims of a Christian genocide have been gaining traction in US political circles. I mean, from your investigations, how accurate or misleading is that framing of Nigeria's security crisis?
Well, everyone we've spoken to, including people in the US, but I mean, the most authoritative sources are obviously going to be coming from civic groups in Nigeria. And the view we've been getting is that there's a major security crisis in Nigeria. And I think the ACLED security trackers have said over 10,000 people were killed in violent attacks last year, which is a kind of low-level conflict level. I mean, if you think about the number of people that have been killed in Ukraine or Sudan, you know, you're heading up to those sorts of figures. But that is across the board. That is Muslims, that is Christians, that is people of other faiths, and indeed atheists. I mean, every person, every citizen could be subjected to this violence. And I think that's the point, that it's not a targeted against one particular faith. Everyone is tied up in it. And I think it's had more resonance, shall we say, in the US, where the religious right and the Christian lobby groups are extremely powerful. And that's why it seems to have taken flight as a kind of propaganda meme that's gone out, and it's pushed the government into acting.
I was just going to, I mean, you've kind of answered the next question I was going to ask you, which is why resonated so strongly in parts of the political system, particularly among sort of conservatives and evangelical audiences. So let me move on from that, because your newsletter, Africa Confidential, and as we've been discussing here, reports that the Tinubu administration has signed an expensive contract with a Republican-linked lobbying firm. I mean, what exactly is Nigeria trying to influence in Washington? Is it policy? Is it perception? Is it protection from sanctions? I know you sort of touched on it briefly, but if you could expand on that a bit.
I think that's that's the nub of the issue, Charles. Why so much money, and why now? Because after President Trump made his statement, then National Security Advisor Nuhu Rabadu went to Washington with his intelligence staffers, and they met Peaks Hegseth and the U.S. Chairman of the Chiefs of Staff. They had a very high-level meeting 3 weeks after Trump's statement, and then they got into these negotiations about what security help Nigeria could get from the US. And it's nothing to do with what's a bit of a, Rabadu didn't need a lobbyist to open the door to meet Hegseth. He organized that through Nigeria's diplomatic channels. And a lot of people I've spoken to on the Nigerian side and the US side say, there's a number of extremely talented diplomats in the Nigerian system. And they should be called into action on this because they have a lot more credibility. They come from the country. They speak the languages. They know the issues. They know the political nuances in all this. and they would be far more effective than engaging foreign lobbyists. And the lobbyists are going to do, a bunch of things, but the main thing is they're going to do is open a door to meet the top American officials. It seems that Ribado was able to do that without hiring a lobbyist at the time.
So, in that regard, does this kind of signal weakness, or is it simply the reality of modern international politics?
It's something everyone is doing. I mean, that is states across Latin America, states across Africa and Asia, and states across Europe tend to lobby U.S. officials. I guess you could argue one thing the lobbyists could help with would be U.S. Congress. Now, there are about $350 million worth of armaments which the U.S. is meant to be supplying Nigeria to help on the counterterrorism campaign and all the rest of it. That stuff has got stuck in Congress under Joe Biden because the Nigerian military didn't meet their strictures on accountability and protection of civilians and so on. So I suppose that's one thing the lobbyists are going to do, which is to press U.S. Congress to release that money and to release those arms, for which Nigeria is $1 billion. And you've got to ask yourself, the national nature of Donald Trump's government, that's to Nigeria be probably easier under the present U.S. administration than it was under the Biden administration, with its various strictures on who buys arms and what they use them for.
Indeed, and of course, on the other side, looking at the brilliant article that Africa Confidential wrote, on the other side, Biafra-linked groups are also lobbying Washington, calling for sanctions, recognition, and even future military and oil deals. I mean, how seriously are these groups being taken in U.S. policy circles?
Well, serious enough that you've got people like Ted Cruz, who is the conservative senator who chairs the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He's a big supporter of the Biafra government in exile. He's a big supporter, actually, of the Somaliland region in East Africa. And Mike Pompeo, who was the former Secretary of State, and that was under Trump's first term. And Pompeo is a very devout evangelical Christian, and so is Cruz, and they're combining the two things, where they're talking about the rights of the people of Southeast Nigeria, and also this issue again of protecting Christians. So yeah, they've got a lot of sway within the Republican Party. And a lot of this stuff, Charles, is about sentiment as much as anything else. It's often free from, shall we say, established facts and evidence. It's a sense that these are evangelical Christians who put that belief above all else. And the Biafran lobbyists have been extremely effective over probably 20 years, working through the religious right in the US, which brings together a lot of these evangelical groups, and they're big financiers of the Republican Party. And as the Republican Party has moved to the right, so have they. And they've become a big mobilizer of votes for the Republican parties. So there are people who are evangelical Christians who may not like the look of Donald Trump and his various comments about women and all the rest of it, but they bury that concern for their greater good, which the man is for Christians, he's for evangelical, we're going to give him our support. So Trump, the evangelical base is absolutely critical for Trump, and that's, I think, it accounts for some of the success of the Biafra lobby in the US.
Well, that's a very illuminating assessment from you. And in that context, Patrick, I mean, is there a risk that fringe or poorly sourced claims could begin to shape US foreign policy towards Nigeria?
I think there's going to be no substitute for an effective state-led diplomatic operation with people like, Yusuf Togo, your foreign minister, who is widely respected in Europe and the United States, and Nuhu Rabadu, the national security advisor, and the top-ranking diplomatic cohort. And I think that's what's going to make the difference. Certainly not lobbyists. And I think American governments, Western governments in general, want to see that sort of level of engagement, both with the officials, even with the media, in fact, pushing back when they see, I've been in journalism a while, some countries push back immediately, like Rwanda or whatever. If they don't like what you're writing, they'll push back hard. They'll contact you and complain about it, pick you up on issues and say, that's fact is wrong. Why did you print that? We want an apology and all the rest of it. It's kind of activist approach to image making. And the only credible people to lead that kind of activist approach are the nationals from that country. They're top officials and skilled diplomats to get that point across. And I think that's where Nigeria has been missing in action. And it sort of led to this Trump campaign. And now it seems to have provoked a reaction in Abuja, which is to engage more and to work more closely with the officials in Washington.
So given where things are with that and the way that you clearly sort of assessed it just now, what are the risks for Nigeria when competing domestic actors take their battles to foreign capitals, especially Washington?
I think the national view is it's dangerous. I mean, there is a kind of unwritten rule. Domestic politics stops at the border. I mean, that rule is to some extent, it's the rule in Britain, although I think Britain is getting increasingly ill-disciplined on that one. That is to say, if you're in the Labour Party or the Tory Party in Britain, you don't go to France and start slagging off, your Tory MP. You don't go to France and start slagging off the Labour Prime Minister. You're not meant to do that. You're meant to keep your battles within your national boundaries. It looks bad if you've got, sure, you're going to have critics, but if they are another party, for example, in the Nigeria sense, I guess, if someone from the Labour Party turned up in Washington and started, holding meetings and condemning President Tinubu, something they could easily do in Nigeria, but it wouldn't be seen as a good way to run a campaign in the States. Why are you criticizing your own leadership abroad? You should be doing that. You should be organizing at home. So I think that's the danger with that. It is a shame. I guess you could say that the Christian lobbyists are kind of a pressure group as much as a political party. I mean, they don't, as I understand it, the particular group that's hired the lobbyists is not going up in the elections or anything like that. It's simply putting its demand to the U.S. authorities support because we deserve self-rule. In the terms of how the international non-governmental sector operates, I guess it's legitimate. I don't see the U.S. buying into that, but it will certainly proffer support, and it could create problems for the Nigerian government, as we've seen. After Nigeria was declared a place of concern for the protection of Christians, if they started to impose sanctions because of that, obviously it would make life much more difficult for the Nigerian government. And I think that's another reason, the concern about possibility of sanctions, why the Tinubu administration acted pretty quickly after Trump made his initial statement.
Well, let me pick you up on that further about the potential problems. I mean, could this lobbying war complicate military cooperation and intelligence sharing between Nigeria and the US, or make it less complicated, what you're seeing at the moment?
I think it's in another kind. The impression I get is that there's a level of professional cooperation between the Nigerian military people, the Nigerian intelligence people, and the US and their counterparts in the US. And once they agreed, once Hegseth met with Nuhu Rabadu and they agreed what the problem was, in this case they were, I think Rabadu, I hear, was arguing that there's this group coming across from the tri-point in the Sahel into Sokoto state, and that's a concern. And then the Americans agreed, and they looked at the targets and all the rest of it, and assessed it on that basis. I mean, the questions that have been raised about that is just how effective that raid was, who was hit, what was hit, and to what effect it had on these fighters allegedly coming across from the Sahel. All of those questions are still unanswered, and that doesn't really add confidence all around. But I think it's on a military level in a way. I don't think the political debate between the groups and the lobbyists, now the DCI, is going to really damage that military cooperation. I think the only thing that would damage it really seriously would be if the US Congress decided that the Nigerian military was not accountable and it was misusing the weapons it was buying from the US, and that would obviously then constrain the Nigerian military in some way, and they'd have to look for other support sources of arms supply. I mean, I guess, in the broad run of things, Charles, a lot of this stuff gets snagged by geopolitics. Why is the US doing this in Nigeria? Are they concerned that if they don't supply arms to the Nigerian military, then China would, then Russia would? I mean, Russia has been sweeping across the Sahel, supplying the government in that area with arms. Maybe they're strongly in Nigeria if the Americans refuse to work with the Nigerians. So I think there's an element of geopolitics, but I don't think that direct competition between the Tinubu government and the Biafran secessionists, I don't think that really affects the military cooperation one way or the other.
And I mean, in the broader run of things that you talked about just a hot second ago, Patrick, I mean, whose narrative would you say is currently winning in Washington? The Nigerian government's or the separatists? And what evidence do you see of that?
It's really difficult within the Trump administration to state clearly and categorically what narrative is winning, because it's there was a talk under Obama. People used to talk about a team of rivals. I mean, under Trump, it's a team of businessmen and competitive entrepreneurs all the time. And sure, you've got someone like Cruz who stood against Trump for the presidential nomination, and there's some sort of animosity between the two. He used to call it my head and things like that. But Cruz is an senator. As I said, he chairs the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. That's powerful, and he's very pro-Biafra. Yet I see no signs that Rubio shares his views. Rubio is also right-wing, religious, I guess sort of evangelical too, but takes a different view on Biafra. So I get Rubio is foreign Secretary of State. He's also National Security Advisor. And Hegseth is also extremely close to Trump. And he was the main interlocutor with Rabadu. So I guess in terms of power politics, Hegseth and Rubio are on the Abuja and the Tinubu side for now. And they've supplied the weapons. Apparently, the AFRICOM statement yesterday said there's a shipments of weapons coming to the Nigerian military via AFRICOM. So you've got to say that they're winning the narrative. But I don't think the Biafran lobbyists are going to up. I think be there pushing their agenda. And you could see some concessions being made. People are talking about the fate of Nnamdi Kanu and stuff like that. So I think in the battle of the big power, I think the top officials in Abuja have managed to hold the top officials under Trump to their line for now. But I'm saying, the way the Trump administration works, as they say on the Moluwe in Lagos, no condition is permanent.
Indeed. And that's a good way to end the chat, Patrick. It shows you're a man with an ear to the ground and his feet firmly sort of staunched on the scandal. Thank you very much indeed. Patrick Smith is the editor-in-chief of Africa Confidential. He's also editor-in-chief of the Africa Report, and he was talking to me on the line there from London. Thank you ever so much.